Chapter 40. He Sao Yun He Sun enjoys the snow on Kwang Wu Mountain. Shin Chiang Chi sells her poems at Lucky Crossing Bridge. Acting on the marshal's orders, He Sao Yun He Sun supervised the rebuilding of the city, which took between 3 and 4 years. They built a wall over 3 miles long with 6 gates and 5 government offices inside the city. A proclamation was issued inviting vagrants to settle here, and wasteland in the suburbs were reclaimed. This is arid land, thought He Xiao. In a year of drought, the people will lose their harvest. We must irrigate these fields. He set aside money and grain for the hire of laborers, and showed them how to cut channels beside the fields. Between the channels were trenches, and between the trenches ditches, until soon there was a complete irrigation system like that in the Yangtze Valley. When all was complete, He Xiao rode out with Mu Nai leading his horse to reward the workers. At each halt he killed an ox and horse and summoned all the people of that district. He built an altar, set up a tablet to the god of agriculture, and sacrificed cattle. He Xiao in his god's cap and official robe stood in front of the altar at the head of the peasants, with Mu Nai beside him as his herald. After burning incense, pouring a libation, offering 3 sacrifices and bowing 8 times, he bade the people face northeast and bow towards the capital to thank the emperor for his favor. Then he made them sit down in a circle and sat in their midst to carve meat and pour wine into the great bowls. So they drank and made merry for an entire day. And when the feast was ended, He Xiao addressed the people. "Fate has brought us together to this feast today," he said. "Thanks to the emperor's goodness and your hard work, we have brought all these new fields under cultivation. I, He Xiao, have played my part in this too. Now, in memory of this day, I am going to plant a willow, and let each of you do the same. If not a willow, then a peach or apricot." The people gave a great shout of approval, and each planted a fruit tree or willow by the roadside. In this way, He Xiao and Mu feasted for several weeks in one district after another, and tens of thousands of willow trees were planted. To show their appreciation of He Xiao's goodness, the people built a temple to the god of agriculture outside the city, with a shrine to the god in the center, and next to it a long-life tablet for He Sao Yun He Sun. An artist was also found to paint He Xiao in his gauze cap and official robes on horseback, with Mu Nai holding his reins and carrying a red banner to encourage the peasants. On the 1st and 15th of every month, all the men and women of the district would come to burn incense, light candles, and do reverence there. The following year, when the willows burst into leaf and the peach and apricot trees blossomed, He Xiao rode out with Mu Nai to enjoy the spring. In the shade of the willows, the peasant children were playing. 3 or 4 of them tugging one buffalo, others riding back to front on the buffalo's back or sprawling across them sideways. After drinking from the channels by the fields, the cattle plodded slowly past the cottages. He Xiao looked on and was glad. "See that," he said to Mu Nai. "These folk are able to make a living now. But all these bonny children who look so bright ought to have a teacher to teach them reading and writing. Didn't you know, sir, that a few days ago a scholar from the lower Yangtze Valley put up in the temple to the god of agriculture? He's probably still there. Why don't you go and talk it over with him?" "What luck!" cried He Xiao. He galloped to the temple, went in, exchanged greetings with the scholar, and sat down. "I hear you are from the Yangtze Valley, sir," said He Xiao. "What brings you to an outlying region like this? May I ask your honorable name?" "My name is Shin. I am a native of Changchou. I used to have a relative in business in Green Maple City, and I came to see him. Owing to your disturbances, I have been stranded in these parts for 5 or 6 years. Recently I heard an official named He Xiao had rebuilt the city and irrigated the fields here, so I came to have a look. What is your distinguished name, sir, and where is your honorable yamen?" "I am He Xiao Yun He Sun, who has been working here on irrigation." The scholar stood up to bow to him again. You are a Pan Chao of modern times, sir," he declared. "I admire you immensely. While you're in the city, you must let me be your host, sir. I hope you'll move into my office." He Xiao asked 2 men to move Mr. Shin's baggage, then bade Mu Nai lead his horse while he walked hand in hand with Mr. Shin to the yamen. He entertained the scholar to a good meal, then told them how they were looking for a teacher. Mu Shin accepted the post. "One teacher will not be enough, though," said He Xiao. He chose 10 of the most literate of the 2,000-odd garrison troops under his command, and asked Mr. Shin to give them lessons every day. Then 10 schools were opened for the most intelligent children. At the end of 2 years, Mr. Shin began to teach them to write Paku essays. broaching the subject, following up, enlarging on the theme, and so forth. All the students who mastered this were treated by He Xiao as his equals, and granted special privileges. So the people here knew that learning was an honorable thing. When He Xiao's work in the city was done, he wrote a report and bade Mu Nai deliver it to Marshal Ping. The marshal questioned Mu Nai on certain points, then promoted him to the rank of sergeant, and on the strength of He Xiao's report sent a memorandum to the Ministry of War. Then the Ministry of Works issued the following statement. He Xiao Yun He Sun's construction work in Maple City has been reported by the officer in charge. On bricks, mortar, and workmen, he spent 12,360 taels, 12 cents, and 15 cash. Although where grass and water abound, to make bricks and mortar are a simple matter, and where vagrants are newly gathered together, there are many men whose labor can be conscripted. Such extravagance must not be condoned. Therefore, let 7,525 taels of the construction cost be met by He Xiao Yun He Sun. It appears he is a native of Chengtu and Sichuan. The authorities there should be notified and requested to see that this sum is paid within a certain time. This order is sanctioned by the emperor. When He Xiao saw a copy of this statement and received a reimbursement order from his superiors, he wound up his affairs and packed to return to Chengtu. At home he found his father ill, unable to leave his bed. He Xiao went to his bedside, asked after his health, and described all that had happened since he had joined the army. After that he kowtowed and would not rise from the floor. "You did nothing wrong," said his father. "Why don't you get up?" Then He Xiao told him how the Ministry of Works insisted that he must pay a part of the construction expenses. "A filial son should support his parents," he said. "I have not only failed to save a cent, but now I must ruin you too, father. I am less than a man and feel utterly ashamed." "This is a government order," replied his father. It's not as if you had squandered the money, so don't let it upset you. My property must amount to 7,000 taels altogether. Make it all over to the state." To this, He Xiao agreed with tears. His father's illness was so grave that for days He Xiao did not undress, but nursed the old man day and night. All his efforts were vain, however, and finally, in tears, he asked, "Have you any last orders for me, sir?" "A foolish question," retorted his father. "As long as I live, I am the head of the house. The day that I die, you'll be master here. The main thing is to be loyal and filial, son. All else takes second place." This said, he closed his eyes and died. He Xiao wailed bitterly and prepared for the funeral with full observances of the funeral rites. When the old man at the frontier lost his horse, he thought it might be a good thing, sighed He Xiao. If I hadn't had to pay that sum, I certainly shouldn't have come here, in which case I couldn't have buried my father myself. So my return can't be called unfortunate. By the time his father was buried, all the property was gone, yet He Xiao was still over 300 taels short, and the local magistrate kept pressing him for the money. Just then, as luck would have it, this magistrate was degraded for his failure to suppress banditry, and the new magistrate was a man who had been recommended by Marshal Ping when the latter was a provincial governor. As soon as this officer reached his post, and learned that He Xiao Yun He Sun was one of the marshal's protégés, he drew up a statement that He Xiao had fulfilled his obligation, then advised him to go to Marshal Ping and make up his deficit later. The marshal condoled with He Xiao and wrote a letter on his behalf to the Ministry of War. "There is no precedent for promoting a man because he reconstructed a city," replied the officials in charge. "He Xiao Yun He Sun will have to remain a lieutenant until he is promoted in the ordinary way to the rank of second captain. Bring him to court again when he is a captain." He Xiao waited for another 5 or 6 months until he was appointed a second captain of Chiang Hui Station in Nanking. He went to the court to receive his appointment and was ordered to proceed at once to his post. Leaving the capital with his credentials, he set off by the eastern route to Nanking. After Crimson Dragon Bridge, he came to Quang Wu Station, and stopped there at an inn because it was late. This was midwinter. At the second watch, the innkeeper called to his guests, "Get up, gentlemen. Sergeant Mu is making his rounds." They threw jackets over their shoulders and sat on the edge of their beds as 4 or 5 soldiers came in with lanterns to light the sergeant's way, as he checked the list of travelers. This sergeant was none other than Mu Nai. He was in raptures at the sight of He Xiao, asked after his health, and insisted on taking him at once to his office to spend the night. The next morning He Xiao wanted to be on his way. "Stay for a day, sir," begged Mu Nai. "It looks like snow." We can make a trip to Yuan Chi's temple on Kwangwu Mountain. You must let me be your host." To this, He Xiao consented. Moon-Eye called for 2 horses to ride up the mountain. He also ordered one of his men to carry up food and water to Yuan Chi's temple. A priest who welcomed them and asked them to sit down upstairs in a pavilion at the back did not presume to keep them company, but merely brought in tea. Moon-Eye opened the 6 windows which overlooked the mountain. The trees were bare, wind was tossing the stark branches, and snowflakes were falling. "At Green Maple City," said He Xiao, "we saw plenty of snow, but I never found it depressing. Yet these few flakes today make me feel completely frozen." "The 2 commanders must be toasting themselves by the fire now in ermine coats," said Moon-Eye. They're sure to be doing themselves well." When they finished drinking, He Xiao stood up and began to stroll about. The walls of a small summer house to the right of the pavilion were covered with poems by various scholars, and he read them all. The title of one was "Remembering the Past at Kwangwu Mountain." It was a poem in the ancient style with several characters to each line, and he read it again and again until his tears began to fall. Moon-Eye, at his side, could not understand what had upset him. The superscription read, "By Wu Shu of Nanking," and He Xiao made a mental note of this. Then they made ready and went back to Moon-Eye's office to spend another night. The next day was fine, and He Xiao took his leave of Moon-Eye and saw him past Big Willow Station. From Pukou, He Xiao crossed the Yangtze to Nanking, handed in his credentials, and proceeded to his new post. Having checked the number of porters and boats and gone into various problems, he took over from his predecessor. One day he asked the transport man, Do you know a Mr. Wu Shu who lives in Nanking?" "Never heard of him," said the runner. "Why do you ask?" "I saw a poem of his at Kwangwu Station and would like to meet him." "If he's a poet," said the runner, "I'll ask at the Imperial College." "Find out as fast as you can," said He Xiao. The next day the runner reported, "I've been to the Imperial College, sir. They told me at the gate that there's a residential student named Wu Shu who lives at Flower Arch. Send someone over at once to go with me. I shan't want my full escort," ordered He Xiao. "I'm going to call on him." He went straight to Flower Arch, to a house facing west, and handed in his card. Wu Shu came out to greet him. "I am a military man, newly come to Nanking," said He Xiao. "I admire all worthy scholars and gentlemen. The other day, on a wall in Yuan Chi's temple, I read your masterpiece, Remembering the Past at Kwangwu Mountain. That is why I have called today." "I dashed off that poem in a fit of emotion," Wu answered. "Little did I think you would honor me by reading it." Tea was brought in. "Since you come from Kwangwu, sir," said Wu, "am I right in assuming you were posted here from the capital?" "Well, sir, it's a long story. I joined the expedition against Green Maple City, and because I spent too much time on reconstructing the city, I've only just succeeded in making good the deficit. Then I was promoted from lieutenancy to my present post in Chianghui Station. Now I have been lucky enough to meet you. I shall ask your advice in everything. Some other day I have a favor to ask you." "I shall profit too by your instruction," rejoined Wu. "I shall profit too by your instruction," rejoined Wu. He Xiao rose to go. As Wu Shu saw him out, one of the college servants came rushing up. Dr. Yu is waiting to speak to you, sir," he announced. Wu Shu called on Dr. Yu. "Your mother's ennoblement was rejected 3 times because the request was sent in too late," said the doctor. "Now at last it has been approved. The money for an archway is in my office. I hope you will collect it as soon as possible." Wu Shu thanked him and left. The next day he went with his card to return Captain He Xiao's call. He Xiao invited him into the hall, and they exchanged greetings and sat down. "Yesterday, when you did me the honor of calling, I was very remiss," said Wu. "You praised my poor work so highly I felt thoroughly ashamed. I have brought some more of my unworthy compositions for your criticism." With that he produced from his sleeve a volume of poems. He Xiao took it, turned over a few pages, and was full of praise. He invited Wu into the library, and a meal was served. After they had eaten, He Xiao fetched a scroll and handed it to Wu. "Here are some pictures of my adventures," he said. "I would like to ask you, sir, with your great literary gifts, to write a few words in prose or verse so that my achievements will not be forgotten." Wu placed the scroll on the table and unrolled it. The title read, Account of the Western Expedition. There were 3 illustrations, the first called Routing the Enemy at Chair Mountain, the second the Capture of Green Maple City, and the third encouraging the peasants in spring. Each picture was followed by a detailed account. When Wu had read it, he sighed. "Since ancient times, the flying general has been unlucky," he declared. "With such great achievements to your credit, you are still in so humble a position. I will certainly do my best to write something for you. But because your rank is low, your stirring feats on the battlefield will probably not be recorded in official histories. You'll want several good scholars to write about your adventures, for their works will confer immortality on your loyal deeds and rescue them from oblivion." You flatter me," replied He Xiao. "If you will write for me, I shall become immortal." No, protested Wu. "I will take this scroll with me, though. There are some well-known scholars here who love to extol loyalty and filial piety. If they see this account of your exploits, I am sure they'll be glad to write of them. Allow me to show them this manuscript." "Do you think I should call on your friends first, sir?" "That is easily done." He Xiao fetched a red card and asked Wu to write down their names. Wu gave him the names and address of Dr. Yu, Qi Hing Shang, Chuang Xiaoqiang, and Tu Xiaoqing, then picked up his scroll and took his leave. The next day, He Xiao called for these 4 scholars, and they returned his call. Then he set out with the order from his superiors to take grain to the Hue Valley. The junk on which he traveled to Yangchao moored in the customs wharf, and amid the bustle and excitement, another boat pushed its way through the shipping towards them. "Mr. He Xiao," cried a man in the bow. "What are you doing here?" He Xiao turned around. "Well," he exclaimed, "so it is Mr. Shin. When did you come back, sir?" He bade his junk make fast to the other boat, and Mr. Shin leapt aboard. "It is several years since we parted at Green Maple City," said He Xiao. "When did you come back to the south, sir?" "After you helped me, Lieutenant, I taught for a couple of years and saved up enough money to come here. I have promised my daughter to Mr. Sung of Yangchao, and I'm taking her to his home now." "My congratulations to your daughter," said He Xiao. He ordered his man to take the young lady a tael of silver as a congratulatory gift. "I am delivering official grain to the north, so I dare not delay," continued He Xiao. "When I come back to my office, I shall ask for an interview with you, sir." He said goodbye, and his junk cast off. Mr. Shin took his daughter Chiang Chi ashore, hired a small sedan chair for her, and saw her luggage carried to Great Prosperity Salt Shop near Gaping Lake. The shop assistants welcomed her and announced his arrival to the merchant, Sung Wei Fu. Sung sent a man out to say, "The master orders the bride to be carried in. Mr. Shin is invited to stay in our shop, where the manager will prepare a feast for him." When Mr. Shin heard this, he said to his daughter, "Our original intention was to find temporary lodgings here and wait for him to choose an auspicious day. Why is he so high-handed? It doesn't look as if he's taking you for his principal wife after all. Shall we go through with this match or not? This is up to you, daughter." "Don't be upset, Daddy," said Chiang Chi. "We haven't signed any documents selling me to him or received any payments from him. So how can I be his concubine? Since he gives himself such airs, if you quarrel with him, it will only lead to talk. Let them carry me in now and in this sedan chair, and we'll see how he treats me." Mr. Shin agreed to this, and looked on while his daughter adorned herself as a bride. When she had put on her chaplet and scarlet tunic, she knelt in farewell to her father, then mounted the chair. One of the servants accompanied the chair to a house with a big gate by the riverside. There were several nursemaids there carrying their master's children and joking with the gateman. "Is it the bride from the Shin family?" they asked when they saw the chair. Please get out and go in by the side entrance." Chiang Chi said nothing but alighted and walked straight into the hall, where she sat herself down. "Kindly ask your master to come here," she said. "The Shins of Changchao are a respectable family. If he wants to marry me, why doesn't he hang lanterns and festoons and choose a lucky day for the wedding, instead of having me carried in on the sly as if I were a concubine? I don't ask anything else. Just let him show me the marriage certificate signed by my father, and I'll say no more." Quite staggered, the servants hurried to the buildings at the back to report this to their master, who was in the dispensary watching his pharmacist prepare ginseng. And Sung Wei Fu turned red. "We merchants employed by the state take 6 or 7 concubines a year," he blustered. "If they were all so pernickety, a fine time I'd have of it. Anyway, now that she's walked in, she can't fly out." After dithering for some time, he called one of the slave girls. "Go to the front," he ordered. Tell the new bride the master isn't at home today, and let her go to her room. If she has anything to say, it can wait till the master comes back." When the slave girl delivered this message, Xiang-Chi thought, "There's no point in sitting here. I may as well go in." She followed the girl out of the hall through a scepter-shaped door to the left, past 3 rooms of Nanmu wood, and a large courtyard filled with boulders from Tai-Hu Lake. Taking a path to the left past 3 artificial mountains, they came to a garden. Here were clumps of bamboo, summer houses, and a huge pond of goldfish surrounded by a covered walk with vermilion balustrades. At the far end of this were a small moon gate and a gilt lacquer double door. Through this door, in a courtyard to itself, was a 3-roomed building with a tastefully furnished living room. "I doubt if this merchant appreciates such seclusion," she thought. "I may as well while away a few days here." The slave girl went back and told Xiang Wei-fu, "This new bride is ever so pretty, but she seems to have a temper. She's not someone you can take liberties with." The next day, Sung ordered his steward to go to the shop and tell the manager to pay Mr. Shin 500 taels and send him home. Since his daughter was already in Sung's hands, the merchant could do nothing but... The merchant thought there was not much the scholar could say. "This is bad," thought Mr. Shin. "He's obviously taking my daughter as a concubine. I'm not going to stand for this." He went straight to Chiangtu County Yamen to lodge a protest. As a senior licentiate of Changchao, Shin Ta Nian ranks as one of the Gendry, thought the magistrate reading the charge. He would never willingly let his daughter become a concubine. These salt merchants think they can get away with anything. So he accepted the indictment. As soon as Sung knew of this, he dispatched one of his clerks with a charge against Shin, and bribed all the officials. The next day, Shin's indictment was endorsed as follows. If Shin Ta Nian intended to marry his daughter to Sung Wei-fu as his principal wife, why did he send her secretly to Sung's house? Obviously, she was intended all along for a concubine, but he is now misrepresenting the situation. His petition is rejected. On Sung's charge was written, "See the decision on Shin Ta Nian." When Mr. Shin presented another petition, the magistrate was angry and called him a troublemaker. He ordered 2 runners to escort him under arrest to Changchao. Soon Chiang-Chi had been several days in several days in Sung's house without news. "This merchant must be taking steps to silence my father before coming to trouble me," she thought. "I had better run away." She bundled together all the gold and silver plate, pearls and jewels in her room, put on 7 skirts, and dressed herself like a maid, then bribed the slave girl to let her out by the back gate before dawn. Early the next morning, she passed through the customs house and boarded a boat. There were women of the boatman's family aboard. "If I go to my parents in Changchao, our neighbors may laugh at them," thought Xiang-Chi. "Nanking is a good place. There are many scholars there. And I can compose verses after a fashion. Why don't I go to Nanking and sell my poems for a living? Perhaps I may meet with good luck." This decision taken, she changed boats at Yicheng and traveled straight to Nanking. But to know what followed, you must read the next chapter.